The Boy Who Was Seen as a Villain. Chapter 2. Recovery. The next thing James knew, he was on a hospital bed with a nurse beside him. When he first awoke, his eyes fought to stay shut. He could hear beeping to his side. Some wires were attached to his arm. "He's awake, Doctor!" A woman's voice called out in the dramatic tone that James only heard on TV shows. A slight gasp came from the woman. "All thanks to you, my love. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to revive this boy. I love you, Jocelyn." A manly voice at the same level of drama wooed the woman with a deep stare, and his hand around her waist. James put his head toward them and forced his eyes open to see what was going on. As he thought, there was a very mature and handsome doctor holding a blonde woman who had a perfect hourglass figure. They were kissing each other, the woman with one leg raised. Great. Got some crazy lovebirds taking care of me. This is the greatest day of my life. James moaned in pain and weariness. The door quickly opened on the other side of the room. A stern-looking woman entered the room. She looked like a doctor. At least that's what her clothing said. "All right, get out of here, you two. The last thing this patient wants is some drama from a TV doctor romance." The lady quickly stepped toward James and shooed away the other doctor and nurse. They both gave her a surprised and hurt look. "It seems your work as one of the greatest doctors will never be realized, my darling. Maybe it's because of me. I'm holding you back." The nurse was quick to cry tears of sorrow, burrowing her face into her arm. The male doctor quickly grabbed her by her shoulders and looked her deep in the eyes. "Do not worry, my sweet angel. If I were to become the greatest doctor without you in my life, I would forfeit myself out of the deep depression of simply not being with you." The doctor convinced his love with a great amount of sorrow and confidence. The nurse's lips quivered in happiness. "Oh, doctor." The nurse embraced the doctor with tears of joy. They both walked out of the room while loudly weeping together. A practical river of tears followed them out the door. While all of this was happening, the other doctor looked at them with disgust. "I swear, if they weren't good at taking care of patients, I would have filed a report to fire them when they first came here. Sorry about that, by the way. They can get a bit dramatic whenever they succeed at something." "Don't worry about it. I deal with crazy people all the time whenever I go out. They're not nearly as bad as the clerk who thought he was a chicken when I went to go get groceries a few weeks ago. Got freaked out when I wanted to buy some eggs." "Anyway, while you were unconscious, we examined you. Just the bare essentials: heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, so on and so forth. You passed all of them. Our best guess is that when that villain took hold of you, he might have manipulated your soul energy and made you feel some pain. But we also checked on your SE, and it seems regular too. Nothing to worry about overall." Soul energy is what it sounds like. It fuels life and the body. In fact, most if not all of the superpowers that are in the world are derived from soul energy. All living beings have soul energy, with plants having the lowest amount individually and humans having the highest. Usually, some monsters and deities have more. The doctor's eyes widened slightly with realization, and she reached into one of her pockets. "Oh, by the way, Herman sent you this." The doctor took a piece of colorful paper out and handed it to James. It was a postcard with hearts and cartoonish drawings on it. James opened the postcard and saw her man with a thumbs up and a glimmer in his pure white smile. "Get well soon, friend." These words were above her man with an autograph on the side. James frowned. I bet he's just doing this for a good reputation. The doctor took a clipboard off the table by James, got out a pen, and started writing. I'm pretty sure that he means well. I'm not a Herman fan myself. Name's too weird, and the whole do-it-for-the-cameras thing gets under my skin. But my daughter loves him to bits. I buy her Herman merchandise all the time, and she loves all of it. When she finished writing, she put the clipboard back on the table and prepared to walk out. Anyway, you're well and healthy, so I'll go get the wheelchair and get you out of here. Do you want to call for a ride? I'm okay. I know this city well enough to get to my house. It's not far from here. James waved his hand politely, and the doctor nodded. Okay, I'll be back in a few minutes. Ring the nurses if you need anything in the meantime. James nodded, and she went out into the hallway. James turned his head to look out the window. As usual, the city was noisy and colorful. The sky held planes and helicopters flying around, some for getting news, others for transportation. There went a hero with the ability to fly. Right behind him were some robot ninjas that were hunting him down to the ends of the world. Just another day in the city of Heroesville. James thought of some of the heroes he knew. Some of them had gotten their powers from freak accidents that allowed the manipulation of their soul energy, creating something extraordinary and unreal. Most of them had their powers at birth from either a parent or a mutation in the genes. Having those powers meant you were part of something larger. The power structure created a pyramid where the strongest made the differences in the world, while someone else without powers could only affect something within their limited range of influence. There was a rating system for every powered person. If they were relatively weaker, there were sidekicks if they were good, or henchmen if they were bad. Then there were the villains or heroes, then the supervillains and superheroes. It was a free-for-all when it came to reputation. They did something good and made some difference and built from there, or trouble naturally found them, and they were criticized or defeated. The world could be unfair like that. Things could happen without anybody wanting them to happen, and sometimes nothing happened at all, even if someone wanted them to happen. James was glad that he had led at least a somewhat normal life. Maybe this day was just a little bit unusual, is all. The doctor came back with a wheelchair while James was in deep thought. "Ready to go?" she asked. James turned and nodded. She delivered him to the front of the hospital, and James stood up on thankfully steady feet. "You have a lovely day now. Try not to get caught in any more fights," the doctor said while turning around to walk back into the hospital. "I'll try my best." The doctor gave him a big smile, and then she was gone. James turned toward home and took in a big breath. Then he stepped into the street and joined the steady flow of people. 2 hours later. It took some time, but James managed to get back into his house. It was late at night now. The light was dim, so he could only see deep blue around his house. He sighed with relief when he closed the door behind him. He moved his hand along the wall to find the light switch and flip it on. His house was a high-class apartment building. It was 2 stories with plenty of room for activities. The first room was the living room, which was attached to the kitchen and dining room. A large table from the wall divided the kitchen from the living room. Down a hall was the bathroom with storage in the far back. Upstairs was his bedroom, where he had a computer and things to keep him occupied. A flat-screen TV was in his living room on the wall. 2 chairs and a couch surrounded it, if anyone came over. The house was decorated with some vases, paintings, and pictures of familiar events in James's life. The floor level of the house was hard and stone-like, but the other areas were carpeted. This place was heaven for James because of how convenient and comfortable it was. "Home, sweet home," James said to himself as he walked in. He stretched his arms and yawned loudly. Meaningless tears started to fall from his eyes as he wiped them away. When he cleared his eyes, he noticed some yellow bags on the counter of the kitchen. He went over and saw a note in front of them. He picked it up and read it. "You left these at the fight. Hope you're doing well, James. Love, Grandpa." It was just a normal piece of paper with familiar handwriting. James gave a subtle smile. "Thanks, Grandpa." He put the note aside, picked up the groceries, and started to sort them. Some in the fridge, some in the cabinets, the rest into storage. When James finished and closed the storage door, he went to his room. There he went to bed and closed his eyes. Maybe tomorrow would be better,